Hello and welcome to another episode of the Tell Not Show. As always, we are your hosts. We have the lovely Kirsha Fox, author of Son of Deception and the newly released The White Leaf Child. She's a homeschooling mom of 4 and an avid gamer.
And my co-host is Julia J.K. Allen, editor, author, and author coach. She's a fantasy and horror author who loves to put magic in everything. Thanks so much for watching with us today. Tonight, we welcome Seth Hobbs, author, musician, gamer, educator, husband, and father. Seth is the author of the Sundyne Empire series that is currently ongoing. He loves to follow geopolitics and is a lover of history. Seth likes to read, write, grill out, play pool, and games like Battlefield. And films are another big passion of his, and he is a comedian. He enjoys residing in his family in the wonderful Tar Heel state.
Mm-hmm. North Carolina.
I think.
Yeah, that's the only thing I know about North Carolina is the Tar Heel state.
Yes.
Perfect. All right. Welcome, Seth Hobbs. We're so happy to have you. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your writing journey and what got you into writing?
Well, I've kind of been writing off and on since I was probably 4 or 5 years old, but I don't even know where half of that stuff is. But I've always had a love for literature and good books. And I think my mom really gave me a love for literature and reading and word puzzles. And then my dad was really strong with the history and politics and civic stuff. So I got a good dose of that.
All right.
Nice.
Yeah, that makes sense that you combined that love of literature and history to come together to make your series.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about it. Is it the Sundyne series or Sundyne?
Yeah, I think I say Sundyne. Some people say Sundyne, tomato, whatever.
Okay.
Right. Tell us a little bit about the series.
It started out, honestly, back when I was about 18 years old. And I was kind of a wild child and got into some trouble. It was around the time I was about 18 or 20, somewhere in that range. And I actually had to stay home and just kind of get my life together. I lost my license for a little while many years ago and just all this stuff. And I started writing this story and had no idea where it was going. I liked stuff like Spartacus or Braveheart or whatever, and just started writing an adventure to see where it would take me. And so years later, I actually had one of my students tell me about Amazon. You could self-publish. And I thought, well, I got this carcass of a story that I never really finished. And so I just jumped into it. I wish I'd have done it more polished and looked over it or whatever, but I just jumped in feet first. And then from there, I just got interested in my writing again and decided to make it into a giant world.
Nice. And it is a fantasy, is that correct?
Yeah, it's like epic, high fantasy. You might call it dark or grimdark stuff too, because it's got some dark elements.
All right.
Nice. What does your writing process usually look like? How do you get from like your first idea to a finished draft?
Oh man, I know I'm probably crazy for doing this, but I fly through a lot of stuff. I actually completed the other 2 books in less than a year.
Wow.
But it's probably too rushed. I'm sure I should go back and proofread better and polish, but I don't know where people find the time. Honestly, I hear people talk about, they do 10 different drafts and this, that, and the other. I'll be driving down the road and I'll cut everything off and just think about ideas, or when I'm watching TV at night, I'll have some cold refreshments and just start. I'll just have a little notepad. I borrow my wife's notepad and start writing down all these different quotes and ideas and things in the news or whatever. And then I hope to blend it together later. And then whenever I get a chance, I'll write a chapter on a Saturday or after work or whenever.
So when we were discussing topics for the show, you said you like developing your plot based off history. So do you feel like it's more of like older history that you incorporate into your books, or is it more like current events or is it sort of just both?
That's a good question. It's kind of become both. It started out with kind of a love for ancient and medieval stuff, and shogunate Japan, and all sorts of different the sword and sandal type stuff from medieval and colonial periods. But that my series is a little different because now I took off into all sorts of other areas. Obviously, book 2 was probably heavily influenced by the pandemic because there's a massive plague, and I just take it and run with it, using that as kind of a backdrop for sicknesses and death and conspiracies and all sorts of stuff that also ties in with different factions in our own world. So I've kind of gone off on rabbit trails now into, and it even warps into a gunpowder age where people are being given secret technology by perhaps demonic entities or an alien race. And so things are moving in this parallel world much more rapidly than they did in our history. But there's even, a Messiah and all sorts of different things that have happened. You can see some parallels.
That's so interesting. I know that a lot of authors that are like big names use history as kind of inspiration for their stories and their plot as well. How do you balance finding your inspiration in history and also being original and true to your story?
Well, that's a good point. I guess there's nothing new under the sun, as we've heard before, but it's all in how. I read something the other day where a guy said he gave several different authors a topic and a theme to write about, and you would think it would be very similar, but it was like the way that they did it was just so different and unique. So it's like I play music as well, and so there's only so many chords you can use, right? Or so many notes, but it's that blending of a different harmony with your own unique instrument, your own style, your own melody that kind of makes it different. So I hope I draw off a bunch of crazy ideas plus history and make it into my own unique fantasy.
Now, you mentioned your students and that you're a teacher. What grades do you teach, or what subjects?
High school. I started out teaching English for a few years, and then since history and civics and stuff was a passion of mine, and I had been a history student in the past, I went back and took the praxis for social studies, and I took an econ course. So I've added a few other things. So now I'm doing high school social studies and film lit right now.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah, I enjoy it.
Yeah. So how do you let history inspire you for your stories? Like, what does it look like in the practical sense of taking history and then incorporating it?
Well, I guess you kind of start off with a base of where you want to go. Like I started off with kind of a lot of people compare my world to a Roman or Greek based empire or something from that time period. And then I kind of go from there. And of course I don't think any of us can help from, throwing in our own life lessons or quotes, real life people that and, just kind of blending, I guess, all the different mysteries and morals and personal stuff, humor. And then sometimes you just are writing and have no idea. And somebody says, I didn't like the way they did this, or it was evident that they thought this. And I'm like, I know, I was just putting this through the viewpoint of different characters, filling it out. So it's interesting how people sometimes will glean something that you didn't even have any idea about, but we all see it differently.
Right.
We've said before that we really enjoy teaching truths through fantasy. Do you feel like that is something that you do? Is that you like to use fantasy as a mirror to the world that we're living in now? Or lately, I'm trying to ask, do you feel like your books are teaching sort of a moral lesson, or is it just kind of for flavor?
I think it does have some moral lessons. I definitely I'm a big fan of George Orwell and 1984. Things like dystopian. There's definitely in my books 2 and 3 kind of a dystopian flavor of what can happen when some people are controlling all the information, or
Right.
people are not able to access certain things, or so there's I think I don't think we can help but place some moral stuff in there. And honestly, some people don't like that. They pick up certain themes and they may not
Mhm.
like it. But whereas I can watch any number of things, and even if it doesn't, pick up my specific social or political beliefs, I can usually get something out of it. Hopefully some kind of lesson that will make us wiser going forward.
I love that idea of taking something like higher epic fantasy, but also getting inspiration from your love of dystopians as well. Have you ever read a Brave New World?
I didn't read the whole book, but I definitely am familiar with it. Yes. I
Yeah,
should have read the whole book.
well, it's just interesting because I recently reread 1984, and I was just it made me like compare and contrast the two. Is just how stark the reality is in 1984, but I really liked A Brave New World because the characters had, to me, I think a little more sympathy, because like the characters in 1984, like it's kind of wild when you think about it, where he's just like, I almost killed you because I thought you were going to turn me in, and she's just like, I love that.
Yeah, it's
And
bleaker. Yeah.
it's a little bit starker with the characters. So I really enjoyed A Brave New World because I was just like, oh, I like the characters a lot, and how you can kind of really sympathize with the characters and what's going on. But 1984 is a classic for a reason, for sure.
Yeah, Brave New World is now help jog my memory. That's the one where everybody's on drugs and they have a euphoria.
Yes, they have the drugs to stay happy and young, and we find the character that was lost for a while, and so she's grown and aged, and the characters are kind of like, oh my gosh, like an older person. Yeah.
That's a great point too, because that we think of worrying about the future with 1984, but Huxley's book is good, like you say, because that's kind of maybe closer to what Americans or Westerners are living in the modern era. I'm on a phone all day. I'm trying to get my dopamine. I'm trying to get drugs and big pharma and whatever, and alcohol, and all the things you can divert your attention from. And a lot of people just are not aware of anything. That's one reason I enjoy teaching civics, because it's scary when you turn on TV and half of adults don't know 3 branches of government. They don't understand.
Right. Are you smarter than a 5th grader is the thing that we have in society today. Yeah.
The ratio that we have. Yes.
Yes. Sorry to kind of divert
for
a minute, but I I had to get your opinion on that. So we talked a little bit before the show. You also said like working these real life issues into your books is important to you. Why do you think, or do you think it's easier to talk about kind of like real life issues like that, dystopian aspects of society through fiction?
I guess it's kind of like the idea of the jester or the comedian, even though your book is not always completely humorous. It's the idea of when you tell people truths, or you explore certain ideas, it's better to make the audience laugh or to put it in a fantastic setting. What is it? Otherwise, they'll kill you. So it kind of allows you to take all these ideas and just explore it, and not say, hey, I'm here to beat you over the head directly with this, or that you have to be forced to accept my viewpoint. These are just human endeavors and problems that we've been struggling with and will continue to face for years to come.
Yeah, I like that, because a lot of times the jester is seen as kind of this fool in history, but like they were the ones that could tell the truth to the king, right, without getting their head cut off.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Very carefully.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. So what tips would you share with other authors who want to incorporate like more like historical fiction or real life issues in their books?
Well, I read a lot, and I watch a lot of documentaries and clips, and
Mhm.
it's every time. It's like I tell my students or friends or anybody, if you forget something or you want to know more about something, I mean, we've never had so much information and technology in the palm of your hand or at your
Right.
fingertips. So yeah, like while I'm writing the book, half the time I'll be like, what kind of alloy would be used for this, or how did they make phosphorus, or what was a great invention of this time? What was the weirdest religious ritual that people have ever done? And then I'll kind of
Right.
take that and make some kind of spin-off variant. Like for instance, in book 2 of my series, excuse me, I took the idea of, I think it was Masada or whatever it is, that fortress in Judea where the
Mhm.
Romans got everybody besieged. But I created a thing with I'd watched a clip of a documentary about how there was this massive rock formation that was very difficult to get up to. And then there was something that had to connect. And so the Romans actually had to fill it all the way in to even be able to
Mm.
get near these people. So I created something kind of similar with a citadel upon a butte.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and they have a drawbridge that comes down across to a massive, very slick incline, but it has a basket that can bring friendly people up in with kind of a
Oh,
pull.
yeah.
And then if
Right.
people are attacking or trying to ride up there, they can slick it down, and there's rain, and it's very hard to get up there.
Mm.
Oh, that's very interesting. Yeah.
So it sounds like your advice really is, if you want to incorporate more history, study history.
Read, Google, watch more movies
Yes.
from that
Right.
period.
Right.
Yeah, you've got the information everywhere. So
Mhm.
just
Yeah.
go find out and then put your spin on it.
Is
Sounds
there anything that you recommend like avoiding when it comes to like taking inspiration from history or current
Well,
events?
I'm a baby author, so I don't know if a lot of folks may have. I've only been self-publishing for about a year or less now, so I don't know how much super cool advice I have. Um, I think there's an audience for whatever people write. Oftentimes, I've always been kind of fearless about just jumping into something once I decide that I'm passionate about it and I want to do it. But I'm sure there's pitfalls that somebody could warn you of. And like I said, of course, I've already seen sometimes with my writings, sometimes people will be like, well, I didn't like this person's point of view, or I thought it was too much political and social,
Mhm.
overlap from today's world, and it might rub somebody the wrong way.
Right.
But I try not to let that bother me. Like I said, when I read other people's stuff, if I do pick up a message or something that maybe I'm not super fond of, I try not to let that poison me to the idea itself or to the writing itself and the quality of their imagination and their writing style.
Right. We definitely can't please everyone with our writing, right? There's always going to
Mhm.
be a critic. I mean, even for the classics that like millions of people adore, there's always that 1-star review of like they just had tea. Like, why are, why are people so crazy about Jane Austen?
Yeah.
Um,
Like, for instance, I was trying to think of a funny example. Oh yeah, I'm talking through the mind of a teenage emperor who is very decadent and spoiled and just crazy. And he says something about he never understood why his generals would only have one wife when there was so many people he could be exploring. And somebody was like, "What a terrible thing to say." And I was like, "Well, it's not me. It's how a
right.
young, oversexed, spoiled
Mhm.
emperor would respond to that."
Right.
So,
Right.
so you
Right.
can't please everybody sometimes.
Absolutely. Yeah, I would totally agree. You cannot please everyone.
Yes. And there is something to be said for understanding that, like, the authors, like, the characters are not going to be the author. They're different.
Mhm.
Oh, yes, it's
Right.
like, please don't confuse me with the many villains and
Yeah.
morally gray people that are doing brutal, terrible things. That's not
Right.
always the
Right.
author themselves.
Right. Right. Sometimes we get inspiration from outside of ourselves.
Like the people who play, was it the kid who plays Joffrey on Game of Thrones? I'm sure
Oh,
And quick
yes.
acting.
Good
Yeah,
example.
because
Yeah,
He
people
played
probably
it a
gonna
little
throw
too well.
tomatoes at him on the street, and he's like, "I didn't do anything," you know?
Right, he played the character a little too well, and then probably quit acting. Yeah.
Right, precisely.
Oh yeah.
All right. So, sounds like life has got you pretty busy. How do you make time for writing?
Yes, we have a 8-month-old baby, and I have a
Oh,
teenager.
congratulations.
Oh, congratulations. Yeah.
Thank you. So, yeah, we've got quite a bit going on, but very proud of my boys. But it's very busy with work and the kids. My wife does a fantastic job. I got to give her a shout out.
Mhm.
She definitely does a lot to make sure that the baby's taken care of, and so that Daddy can work and ride and drive without running off the road in the morning from lack of sleep.
Mhm.
Yes. It's they keep the ships running so that you can do what you need to outside of the house.
And
For
and she
sure.
works a few days a week still as well with a
Oh yeah.
modified schedule, so it's hectic. But like I said, I try to make a little time every day. If you can just write a chapter every couple of days, you'll in a
Mhm.
few months you've got quite a few chapters.
Mhm.
Yeah. I think for a lot of parents, it's just grabbing that time where and when you can, for sure.
Yeah,
For sure.
absolutely.
Do you have a favorite part of writing?
Um, it's just really fun to explore all these things and see where it takes you. Because for me, I'm definitely not one of these guys. I think it's John Grisham or somebody who
Mhm.
they say does a whole chapter and has it plotted out
Yeah.
perfectly before he even writes it. Um, I often write a chapter and then I go back and title the chapter later, which I didn't even title chapters in the early books
Mhm.
because I was such a noob. I mean, I was rusted out. It was terrible formatting. I've since tweaked it a little bit and added some stuff, but yeah, I'm getting better. I feel like with each book with the formatting and
Yeah.
working on my polishing a little bit. But I'll go back and title a chapter once I'm finished with the chapter, and I'll do a little play on words. Like for instance, in the massive prequel book that I'm working on now, the guy is tricking some people about gemstones or gold or something in the mines. And so I went back and titled it Gem Class Heroes. But just little silly puns, I'll go back and
Right.
it doesn't quite, you won't understand the title of the chapter until you finish it.
Right. I love that you're throwing the dad jokes in there.
I'm known for dad jokes terribly. Yeah.
Right. Oh, that's great.
All right. So, what is your least favorite part of writing?
Oh, and don't forget Sage Against the Machine. That was another.
Oh.
Good one.
I'm sorry though. What was the last question?
What is your least favorite part of writing?
Oh, probably trying to go back and see if you screwed up something and cross your T's and dot your I's, or maybe you might. I don't know if it's really part of the writing, but part of being an author, I never knew how hard marketing has become.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought, oh man, we got the internet now, and there's tons of readers. Billions of people on the planet. My
Right.
books will be flying off soon. With no real effort. And then you're like, oh wow, no, there's just so many books out there that
Right.
it feels like a success just to move a few thousand and give them away or sell a few of them.
Right. Yeah. Celebrate every little victory. Even
Mhm.
the one sale you get. Yeah.
I'm spending
For
more
sure.
money than I make right now, probably, but trying to get my name out there.
Yeah. Do you have being a new author, do you have any writing advice that you've heard that you're like, yeah, I really resonate with this, or I like this writing advice?
Um, that's a tough one. Let's see. Well, I guess if you run into sometimes I feel like I'm just running out of steam or I'm, kind of getting to that writer's block point.
Hmm.
I really like to just cut the radio off, cut everything off on my way to work or wherever I'm going, and really just think about where the plot of my stories could go. and how to tie in different characters. And a lot of times too, I've just introduced a lot of different characters in my books, maybe too many. That's one complaint I get. I'm trying to do too much Star Wars, Game of Thrones, humongous universes, but I like those. It's fun. So wide open. But yeah, I'll often start just creating a lot of different places and characters so that later I will find a clever way to tie them hopefully all back together where, for instance, the other day I was writing about this woman puts a curse on somebody else's child, and then it turns out that you realize one of the children was given away and adopted by some other family. But if you're paying attention to my series, you'll realize that the child was adopted by a family with another powerful family name. And for all these years, nobody knew that they all come from the same bloodline, but nobody ever knows. So I guess I just have to sit down and think about cool characters. And then eventually, if I give myself enough time and I sit there at night and make some notes and stand there in the shower thinking, I'll find a way to tie them into something really cool later in the book.
Yeah, shower thoughts are a great place to get inspiration, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, kind of when you're doing those like mundane, everyday things, it kind of frees your mind to make those connections in the back of your brain.
Another thing, I cannot get music out of my head that inspires me.
Yeah.
I will. You put on like the Conan the Barbarian soundtrack, or
yeah, movie soundtracks are great for inspiration.
I have like the Mandalorian soundtrack, Conan in my head, the Elder Scrolls, on and on and on. Game of Thrones.
Yeah, very nice. Yeah.
Yeah, music can be really good for like setting the tone in your head to make that scene happen. Because I feel like with me, particularly, a scene will be like a small movie in my head, and I try to tell what I'm seeing with words.
Exactly. Yeah, I used to ask my mom. I would watch like a big battle movie or something with all the rousing music, and I'd say, "How do people even fight without that epic music?" Like, I don't think they're thinking about music, son, other than the drummer boy or whatever,
Right.
They did
have a drummer boy, yeah.
The way we experience these huge events and scenes has become, like you were saying, really tied in with the emotion of music as well.
Which is amazing in film and movie and TV. It's harder a job as writers to be like, okay, how do we impart that emotional impact without the music score behind the scene?
Right.
So, but definitely getting inspiration from music can be very helpful.
Absolutely.
So we've talked about, obviously, history has been a big influence in your writing. Do you have any other influences in your writing, whether it's like other authors that have inspired you or just your life?
Yeah, I definitely kind of picked back. I always liked Star Wars as a kid, and I like the big epic movies, like I said, Ben-Hur and the Ten Commandments, and all this different stuff. And then I think lately, TV has become really like the big screen, especially with so many streaming services and internet available. And then with COVID, people not going to the theater. But yeah, that like, I got to admit, I mean, I watched, I had not read the Game of Thrones series, but I watched the show on TV, and then I had read the Saxon Chronicles as a kid, and then that got picked up as The Last Kingdom and Seven Kings Must Die. So there's a lot of, I'm getting back into this idea. I used to just kind of write stories that were kind of small, but I definitely love the epic genre, because like watching stuff like Game of Thrones is right up my alley, because it's just such a vast world of religions and nations and warfare and betrayal and just so many things and if you get tired of one thing, I feel like it's kind of switch to the next character, right?
Right.
I mean, I don't know if y'all watch any of that stuff, but yeah, like for instance, with the kid, in Game of Thrones, Bran. I don't know. I hope I'm
Mhm.
not picking on anybody, but those were they were just often boring scenes. Some of them were really good later, but I would sometimes get bored with that kid or one of the other kids, but then they would move to the next person, right? And
Right,
so
right.
there's a flavor there for everybody. That's why I really like writing these really big, epic, like Dune or Star Wars type universe.
Yeah, yeah. No, that is one nice thing is if you can appeal to different types of audiences with the different characters that you're writing. So Bran was a spiritual and introspective journey, whereas like King of the North, Robb, you know, he was a little bit more fun to watch him fighting the Lannisters and all of that. So yeah, you can definitely, and then also like being ADHD, I love being able to jump around to different like projects or different areas of a project.
Right.
So I can definitely resonate with the jumping around a different character if you get bored.
Yeah, I probably need to work more on more character development or certain different points of view that are harder for me as a man to write or whatever. But I'm working on all of those things as I go on my journey. But like you said, it's also cool to be able to just switch from a lot of stuff.
Right. Yeah. I find that like certain characters can definitely be hard to write when they're like really outside of yourself, or a different viewpoint or perspective from what you're used to writing. So I always like to look at like personality. So like even if I'm writing like a guy character or someone who's like just got a really different personality, I feel like knowing if they're like introverted or extroverted, if they're shy or they're brass, you know, knowing their personality can really inform how you write them. And I worry a little bit less about, you know, I'm writing a guy. You know, it kind of gets me over the nerves of like writing like the opposite gender.
Yeah, you have to just be fearless and jump in there sometimes.
Yeah.
It's by doing that we learn, right?
Right.
Like by the practice and the repetition and all of that. I don't think that we ever stop improving as authors.
Right.
It just there's so much to learn to do no one's a master of everything, but we managed to carve out our own little niches here.
And,
oh yeah. I used to wonder why do these authors that I like have 28 books? And I used to think that's just crazy. But now you start to realize.
You just keep getting more and more ideas and spin-offs and
Right. Yeah. So now I understand they just keep perfecting their craft and they have so many ideas to add to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kind of the magic of writing and being creative in general. The more you create, the more creative you find yourself.
Very good.
So tell us, do you ever struggle with writer's block?
Yeah, I guess so. I think it's more mild than some folks. But yeah, like I said, sometimes I feel like I'm running into a dead end. So I'll just have to get busy with something else. I'll play some video games. I shoot some pool. Or sorry for the junky garage, but you know, I got a baby and my wife loves Amazon, so there's something coming in all the time. But yeah, I'll find something else to do, and I might have to take I'd say 3 or 4 days and just really kind of recenter myself and think about where I want to go or how could I tie in this character with some other character or place, and maybe that'll give me a whole new avenue to work on. And I've made a map for my world, and so I'll go in there sometimes and be like, a long time ago I put this island right here. What could that be?
Right, what's going on with that island over there?
Right, yeah. So I'll somehow tie that in with the main story and create a whole nother culture or character.
Yeah, I feel like looking at something from like the same thing from a different perspective is really helpful for writer's block. One thing I did once is I wrote from a non-main character's point of view, and it inspired me so much. She ended up being in the next book because I was so inspired by it. So yeah, I love that. Like, what's that island doing?
Well, that is
from a different place.
Like other authors say, nobody in real life, you know, nobody really is the center hero. I mean, they might be a famous leader or politician or general, but like you say, really every little person is really is able to give you, there's so many different, you can stand in one area and look at it from 360 degrees differently.
Right.
So.
Right. What has been your greatest writing victory so far?
I guess being able to finish a trilogy, and no matter how rushed or half baked it may be,
Right.
but
Right.
just that's something I've always wanted to do, and it was
Mhm.
a passion of mine. And I kind of jumped. I guess I jumped from different things. Sometimes I was really all about music for years, and I still play a little bit. But I performed a little bit at local bars and weddings and stuff. But really more for just the fun of it and the love of music and putting on a good time for friends. And then I've kind of moved from that to really being focused now that I'm older on my family, my wife and kids and teaching and all these things. And so it's just been a success for me to even self-publish and, get a few reviews, get a few buddies to read and,
Right.
things like that, and to just keep moving with it. So I've had a few small successes, I think, and hopefully more.
Yeah, I mean, you can't be that tour life forever, right? That's not an easy way of living.
And I was never making any real money off that either.
Right.
It was just
Right.
passion,
Little
So,
passion project. Yeah.
All right.
But no, writing is a great accomplishment. I think I if I'm remembering it correctly, like 6% of people who want to write a book actually finish the book. So
What?
you're
How
among
many-
the elite few. Yeah. Congratulations.
Yeah, I mean, it makes me feel good some days, even though, I'll go buy some promo stuff to get my book out there online. And then you check and, y'all have probably done this and you're like, oh, my book's in like the top 10 of, Epic, whatever. Even if it's trending for a week or something in a good spot, you feel like, hey, I'm not at the bottom of the slush pile this week.
Right. That's always a nice feeling.
As we said before, we celebrate every copy that's sold, every page read we get. It's a good feeling.
Yeah.
It is. And it's a good feeling. And some of your friends and family won't be interested at all, but then others, I had a friend stop by the other day and I had like 3 books, for him printed up. And I was like, here, I'm just honored you want to read it. He's like, no, man, I'm definitely going to pay you. He's like, here.
Oh, yeah.
So that
cherish those friends. Yeah.
Yes. Neither my mother nor my mother-in-law have read my book yet, and my first book, and they keep apologizing. And I'm like, you know what? That's fine. This is
a little spicy anyway.
Don't read the book.
My parents,
there and,
I understand completely. My parents are a little old school, and so I think they started 1 or 2 of mine, and I think my mom or dad was like, do other people write books like this? It's a pretty popular genre, there's a lot of
right.
Don't feel bad. A lot, some people get into it and some don't. Some don't understand, like you say, there's something for everybody in different genres.
Right. Yeah, I know there's some books that it's just like, oh, I don't want you to read it though.
I always hear that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like some movies that you just really can't watch with your parents.
Right. Some things you don't want to be sitting next to mom
people
with.
our age loved my books, but the older folks, you're like, just maybe not.
Yeah, absolutely. My dad was like, did you really have to mention this part?
Right.
That was pretty tame by today's standards,
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite book or author and why?
It's hard for me to say a favorite. It's always like with movies or bands or anything, it's always difficult. Like I said, I probably mentioned a lot of these earlier, but I definitely like George Orwell. I definitely teach and talk about 1984 and Animal Farm and how, corrupt power can damage societies throughout history and in the future, mass surveillance states. So I definitely enjoy dystopian worlds like Orwell. But I guess when I was a kid, I read a lot more fiction than I do today. It's funny now I've jumped in here again as a a fiction author, but I really read a lot more nonfiction today. I'm
Right.
usually reading something about, anything from banks and economics to, what happened in the Vatican, or, just all kinds of different stuff that I feel like sometimes I really have to jump to nonfiction because I feel like I don't want to get too lost in the fiction. I want to know what's really happening with the nonfiction. So I guess I can switch gears back and forth. But yeah, I liked Bernard Cornwell's stuff that's been made into The Last Kingdom. Definitely liked Frank Herbert's Dune and all of those massive epic explorations of things that you can just get lost in. And it's like a dream or a nightmare.
Right.
All right. Have you been given any writing advice that you really don't like? You hated that advice?
Yeah, I guess some people, they're always telling you, was it show and don't tell? You're showing, you need to show more. And so I try to work on that, but I feel like it's all a balance. Some people are like, I don't think the book needs to be all dialogue, but without any dialogue, it would be ridiculous. And then it doesn't need to be all just, massive chapters of info dumps. So you have to figure out a way to cleverly keep that balanced. But yeah, I don't know. Sometimes I don't like when people are just always like, you need to show instead of tell. And it's like, well, I don't have time to write 3 paragraphs about a doorknob or, the way that the wind brushed across the plains. I've already mentioned that. So
you gotta show the important things and tell the rest.
Yeah.
And with an epic world like I write about, you kind of have to fill in a few things to give some perspective here and there. That's just my thoughts.
I definitely would agree that like it's about balance and moderation. Like fight scenes, like I had somebody like do exposition as an editor. They were like telling about the battle, and I was like, no, we have to show this. But then there's other parts that is like, yeah, I don't need the whole like they traveled like for 2 weeks. Like we don't need to show all of that.
That sounds like we're on the same page. Because I really want to show my battle scenes and really or great dialogue between several characters bantering about something and explaining a problem. But if a guy's taking a 3-week ship voyage, I need it to hurry up, So I'm just going to be like, they made it back to this place in record time,
Right. Yeah, I or like things like outfits. Like some stories, outfits are very important. Like Kirsha has talked about Crazy Rich Asians before, and like what they wear is very important. But like, we do not need 3 pages about a dress, like for any story, right?
Right.
So
unless it's a really, really important symbolic dress, like
right. Unless the dress
for the
is
most
like
part, your readers are going to sort of glaze over and want to get to something more interesting.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like we're all on the same page there.
Yeah, that's one of our favorite questions to ask, just because it's so fun to get insight into like this, what people think is like horrible advice or like just advice that doesn't gel with them at all. Yeah.
And I also got to add, I don't know if it's a big thing or not, but some people argue a lot about having your own website. I don't know enough about it honestly to be like, I know for sure, but some people will be like, oh, having a big website is too much upkeep and work. And other ones are like, no, you absolutely have to have this and the website and the mailing list and every social media, Instagram,
Right.
But I guess everything broadens your chances and your horizon if you get into it.
Yes. They're all different kinds of nets, right? For catching those sales. The thing that I've noticed was particularly with marketing and authors is that you got to do what works for you. Like if you have the personality and the sparkle for TikTok, by all means do TikTok. If you're really good at Facebook ads, like do Facebook ads. If you, pick a strength and go with that. I've seen a lot of authors who are trying to force themselves to do something that doesn't come naturally to them, and it's a lesson in frustration for them and for their readers. So
Yeah.
Also, like if you can only consistently devote yourself to like 3 social media channels, like that's better to just do 3 really well or sort of well rather than trying to do 10 poorly, right? So
Yeah, I even started a small book group on Facebook, and it grows a little bit here and there, and I enjoy it. But I quickly realized I couldn't devote the amount of time that it
Right.
takes in all of these groups that I'm
Right.
either a member in or that I'm running to, keep up with all the promises you want to make to
Right.
everybody to get.
Right.
Yes, it becomes
yes,
overwhelming.
yes,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
have
You
to
can
be
get
very
overwhelmed.
careful about accepting ARC and beta reads, because I want to read everybody's book. I have that good intention of, yeah, I'll read it. I'll give you a review. It'll be great. We'll lift each
Right.
other up. And then I have like no time.
Yeah.
I have to be really careful about how many of those I accept.
Right.
Oh
Right.
yeah. I definitely, and I don't know how many people have told me, yes, I'd love to be an art reader, and then
Right.
later on, it's like a year later, it's like, hey, did you ever read that book? Oh no, I forgot.
Oh yeah. Life
Yeah.
life just happens.
But
Yeah,
that's
and I
like you
totally
said, you got
understand
to
that
pick
life
your battles. Yeah.
Yeah.
but it can be pretty defeating as an author to see so many people flake out constantly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Got to work
Yeah.
on not taking that personally though, because
Oh,
a lot
Right.
of times it's not about you or your book. It's just life happened to them and they
Yeah.
couldn't do it.
oh yeah, I definitely understand. I mean, luckily I have a thick skin, so it doesn't
Mm.
For
bother me
sure.
too much.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a good
So
thing as a
where
writer to have.
sorry. So where can we find you online? Where can the people watching this interview like go and find more about you or more about your books?
I am on Facebook. You can look up Seth Hobbs, epic author of fantasy and war fiction. I think I have 2 pages up there with different stuff going on, and then I also am on Twitter, Seth Hobbs 47 on Twitter, and of course you can find my books on Kindle Unlimited or whatever on Amazon as well.
Thank you so much for being on the show. You were fabulous to talk to. And
Well,
we want to
thank
thank
y'all.
thanks to everyone listening at home. And remember, there's more than one way up the mountain. Check out our next episode that'll be coming out next Friday. And if you are interested in being a guest on the show, you can find us on social media at the Tell Not Show or email us at thetellnotshow@gmail.com. Thanks again.
Thank you so much, Seth.
Awesome. I enjoyed it. Y'all take care. Thank you.
Thanks again for listening. If you enjoyed the show, consider subscribing and liking. We appreciate all the support. Julia J.K. Allen is an author, editor, and coach and can be found at hijingsrudder.com.
Kirsha Fox is an author, avid reader, gamer, and mother to 4, and you can find her at kirshafox.com. Thanks and see you next time.